They thought silence would bury us, but in the silence, we became unstoppable. In the black expanse beyond Pluto's grave, Idris Harlan drifted among the wreckage of humanity's last whisper. To the stars, once, this place had been a living artery, orbital shipyards, relay stations, glimmering spires of comm rays that stitched Earth's voice to the colonies. Scattered across the void, now it was all drifting metal and frozen corpses, drifting like forgotten prayers. His suit's visor flickered, catching the dying pulse of an old beacon. He knew its sound by heart, an SOS that no longer reached anyone. Earth's skies had been sealed shut 30 years ago, when the Vakar Dominion Serpentine architects of the blockade encircled the Sol system. With their obsidian monoliths, no signal escaped, no ship slipped through. Earth had become a prison wrapped in starlight. Idris angled his thrusters, skating through the graveyard. His breath echoed in his helmet, rasping like the ghosts that haunted these halls. He'd been 15 when the blockade came, when the Dominion's warfleet split Mars like an egg and turned Luna's colonies to ash. His mother had been on one of those stations, a commander in the last Council fleet. He could still see her face through the glass. A single palm pressed to the viewport as the evacuation pods jammed and the Vakar's plasma fire swallowed her. For 3 decades, Earth had obeyed. Under Dominion law, the cradle of humanity was forbidden to build ships, forbidden to beam signals, forbidden to speak above a whisper to the void, and those who broke the silence were hunted. His father, once a physicist at the Kestrel Ray, had built whisper drives in secret, tiny messengers meant to slip past the Vakar's all-seeing monoliths. The day they found him, they dragged him through the streets of New Santiago, a lesson to the rest. Idris was 17 when he watched that execution. The Dominion guards in black exosuits and the people too hungry to shout. But silence had never been Idris's way. He'd learned to smuggle parts beneath the ruins of orbital relays, pieced together ancient comm cores from decommissioned drones, and now he drifted here, at the edge of the blockade's blind spot, searching for something his father whispered of before the noose snapped. The god of war. His calm crackled. Idris, we've got movement. Dominion patrol, vectoring your way. It was Ava Roslin's voice, sharp and low. She watched him from the edge of an old mining skiff, hidden behind the fractured shell of the Daedalus relay. Ava had been a child when the blockade fell, a child who survived the purge of Europa's bunkers. Now she was the iron spine of their underground, a ghost among the Dominion's wanted lists. Copy, Idris breathed. His eyes scanned the debris field, catching the glint of Dominion drones. Sleek obsidian orbs gliding silently through the dark. If they spotted his thermal signature, they'd tear him apart in seconds. He ducked behind a spinning slab of alloy plating, pulse pounding. His HUD flickered, tracking the drone's patterns. He waited for the gap, 7 seconds of drift. Before they circled back, Ava, he murmured, if I don't come back, finish your sentence and I'll space you myself. She cut in. Find it, Idris. We didn't bury 20 million souls to watch you die whispering excuses. He almost laughed, but there was no warmth in it, only the cold gravity of what lay ahead. He pushed off, silent thrusters carrying him deeper, into the graveyard, past the bleached bones of old fuel lines, past drifting escape pods like frozen coffins. He scanned for the mark, his father's final coordinates, burned into his retinas since the day they took him. There, a shattered hull wedged between twin comm towers, an old war relic from Earth's last stand. The Ars protocol, buried and abandoned when the Dominion severed their reach. Idris found the access port half-torn, a whisper of frost drifting from its cracked seal. He clipped his boots to the hull, fingers trembling as he keyed his suits. Data spiked into the port, his visor wet black, then a whisper, a pulse of ancient code, flickering like a heartbeat. For 30 years, the Dominion thought they'd buried Earth's defiance beneath orbital graves and scorched skies. But some things you can't kill. A flicker of words burned across his HUD. Ars Initiative Code Omega. Ava's voice cut through. His earpiece, taut as wire. Idris, what did you find? He stared into the darkness of the wreck, feeling a shiver crawl up his spine. A cold smile broke the weight in his chest. Not a signal. Ava, a weapon, above him. The drone shifted, and Idris felt, for the first time in 30 years, the flicker of something he thought the Vakar had buried alongside his mother. Hope asterisk. The drones passed within meters of Idris, their sensor rays sweeping the void like the unblinking eyes of gods. He flattened his body to the frozen hull of the Ars relic, heartbeat thundering in his ears. He wondered if they could hear it, the rush of defiance pounding through bones that refused to bow down above him. The Dominion scout ships hung like silent sharks. Vakar vessels were things of beauty and horror, grown from living alloys, each hull a glistening carapace marked with shifting runes. He'd seen those runes up close once, as a child crouched behind shattered walls, watching them burn whole cities to break one rebel whisper. A flicker of movement broke his thoughts. A single drone veered off, its sapphire eye locking on the old warship Idris clung to. He swallowed the fear rising in his throat. He couldn't run now. He couldn't run ever again. Ava's voice buzzed in his ear. "Idris, the drone's pinging the wreck. You have seconds. Hold them off," he hissed. "Idris, just do it." He jammed his data spike deeper into the Ars port. Lines of ancient code flickered across his visor, centuries old. Defense schematics, obsolete by Dominion standards. But buried in the dead data was something more. A protocol. A name that bled from his father's final breath. Ars, the god of war. A flash of memory. His father's voice in the hidden cellar below New Santiago. "They can block the stars, Idris, but they can't erase what we are, the drones." Sapphire glow pulsed brighter. It had seen him. It screamed a warning burst across local channels. Idris ignored it. His gloved hands danced through the interface, fingers trembling as he triggered the old ship's neural core. For 30 years, the Dominion had scoured these wrecks. Sure, they'd wiped every scrap of Earth's war code from the void, but they'd missed one ghost. The drone darted forward, a thin cutting beam spitting from its eye. It seared across Idris's shoulder, vaporizing fabric and grazing flesh. He bit down a cry, teeth grinding as his suit's auto-seal hissed a patch over the wound out. Then he felt it, a vibration through the hull, a pulse, like a heartbeat in steel. The old warship was waking up. In the shadows behind the Daedalus relay, Ava saw it too, the wreck flickering with faint red veins of light. Systems that hadn't whispered in decades pulsing to life. Her fingers tightened around the battered pulse rifle across her lap. "Idris," she barked. "You insane bastard. What did you do?" He didn't answer. He was staring at the drone as its eye glowed brighter, targeting him for disintegration. But then, behind it, a shape unfolded, the broken spine of the Ars shifting, metal plates peeling back like wings. A single railgun, ancient but hungry, locked on the drone dot. There was no sound in vacuum, but Idris felt the vibration as the gun fired. The drone vanished in a spray of molten shrapnel. A whisper crackled through his suit, not Ava's voice this time. A voice deeper, synthesized, rumbling like thunder behind a locked door. "Identify." Idris swallowed. "Idris Harlan, Earthburn, override code, Kestrel Father Genesis." Silence. Then the same voice. Colder. "God of War protocol detected." Awaiting command. Behind him, more Dominion ships were converging, flickers of movement in the dark. Idris pushed himself off the hull, drifting back toward Ava's skiff. The old wreck spoke again, this time through every frequency his suit could catch. "Target, Vakar Dominion. Status, hostile occupation confirmed. Threat level, extermination protocol initiated." Ava's eyes widened as she watched the broken warship unfold further. Inside the fractured spine, ancient missile bays flickered to life. Railguns rotated on rusty spindles. She slammed the throttle, pulling the skiff out of hiding as Dominion patrol ships accelerated. "Weapons hot. Idris, get your ass inside," she yelled. He slammed into the skiff's outer hatch, magnetic clamps locking him to the hull as she spun the craft away from the rising battle. Through his visor, he saw the first of the Dominion fighters arc toward the Ars relic. Plasma lances slicing the void. The old ship took the hits without flinching. It spat its reply. A burst of rail slugs that shredded the lead fighters. In streaks of silver fire, inside the cramped cockpit, Idris collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, shoulder burning. Ava didn't spare him a glance. Her eyes were locked on the chaos erupting behind them. "You insane, suicidal, beautiful bastard," she hissed, voice trembling. "You just woke a nightmare. It's ours." Idris rasped. "It's human, and it remembers." Ava's hands danced across the console, setting the course deeper into the orbital debris. "The Dominion won't ignore this. They'll come in force. The blockade will tighten until there's not a whisper left." Idris's eyes burned as he watched the Ars carve through the Vakar scouts. A dying god, half awake and still. Too powerful for the Dominion's arrogance. Then we break the blockade, piece by piece. Ava shot him a glance, eyes like cold fire. One ship won't do it. He reached inside his suit, pulling free a battered data core. He pressed it to the skiff's nav console, uploading coordinates that had never seen Dominion eyes. It's not one ship, he murmured. It's a graveyard full of ghosts, and it's time we woke them all. Behind them, the R's roared, defiance into the dark. Idris felt something he hadn't dared believe in years. The tremor of an enemy realizing Earth's silence was not surrender. It was a fuse, and the spark had been lit. Beneath the half-buried ruins of the Daedalus relay, a chamber long thought dead flickered to life. Ancient cryogenic conduits hissed as stale gases vented through fractured vents. Sparks leapt across corroded panels. Once, this place had been the nerve center of Earth's outer fleet, the final fallback when Luna fell and the Mars yards burned. Now, Idris Harlan stood at its heart, sweat freezing on his collar as he watched the miracle breathe again. His father's battered data core sat on the ancient console, bleeding its secrets into the cracked mainframe. Beside him, Ava Rosalind paced. Like a caged predator, the skirmish above the graveyard was done. The Dominion scouts reduced to drifting slag, but that tiny victory had cost them any hope of stealth. The Vakar would come. Idris knew that. He welcomed it. A soft tone echoed through the chamber. The core's data finally unlocked. Ghostly blue projections flared to life above the console. Orbital schematics, hidden caches. Old Earth warships half buried in the Orc cloud. Forgotten bunkers welded shut when the Dominion's monoliths rose. 1,000 shards of humanity's last roar. Idris traced a finger through the projections. Grave dogs. They'd once called them vessels too damaged to fight, too dangerous to let the Dominion scrap. Instead, they've been scattered into the dark, sealed under kill switch protocols until someone, anyone, proved worthy to wake them. God, Ava breathed, voice hushed for once. Your father really hid all this? Idris nodded, eyes locked on the swirling maps. Not just him. There were others. The Kestrel Network, the Atlas Cell, the Voss Group. They built fail-safes. Inside fail-safes, each relay, each cache, all buried under Dominion eyes. Ava's gaze flicked to him, and this R's relic is the key. It's the spark. Idris ran a gloved hand over the console, feeling warmth where there should be only cold metal. We link it. Wake the others. Chain the signals through the blind spots, one by one. We build a fleet the Dominion never counted on. She barked a short, humorless laugh, a fleet of ghosts, with half their weapons rusted and the other half older than we are. Idris turned to her, something burning in his eyes that wasn't quite hope, something fiercer, sharper, a fleet that remembers. Dominion code can't overwrite what it can't reach, and these ships, they don't need Dominion fuel, they don't need Dominion parts. They need us, they need humans. Ava stepped closer, close enough for him to see the old burnt scar along her throat, a reminder of Europa's bunkers when the Dominion used gas and plasma to flush out the last families hiding in tunnels. She'd been 6 then. She'd never forgotten. She leaned in, voice low. They'll send dreadnoughts when they find out. Whole armadas. We won't have colonies to hide behind. No council fleet. No reinforcements. Idris didn't flinch. We don't need colonies. We need a message. A fight worth dying for. A spark flickered behind her tired eyes. So we hit the blockade. We hit the monoliths first. Idris pointed at the projection. The Dominion's towering orbital fortresses that strangled Earth's skies. We cracked them open. Free the comm bands. Light up every underground across Earth. Luna, Europa, Titan. If people know we're not alone, they'll rise. And if they rise, then the Dominion bleeds. Ava finished. Her lips curled into something that might have been a smile. In another lifetime, above them, the relay chamber trembled. A distant boom of metal on metal as the R's warship docked with the Daedalus wreck. Idris could feel its presence like a pulse under his boots. A synthesized voice echoed through the chamber. R's initiative, awaiting operational uplink. Ava looked up at the ceiling, then back at Idris. Well, Commander. The word hit him like a slap. Commander. He wasn't his mother, standing tall in her fleet uniform, leading refugee convoys through plasma storms. He wasn't his father, scribbling heretic equations while Dominion spies watched every move. He was just a scavenger who refused to shut up. But here, now, under dead stars that never forgot, that was enough. He squared his shoulders, pats the uplink, light them all up. Ava gave him a short nod and bent over the console, fingers ablur across cracked keys. Static bled from old speakers as the R's linked its core to the hidden network. for a heartbeat. Idris thought it might all fail, that decades of rust and sabotage would choke the signal. Then the floor under his boots thrummed. Blue runes flickered on old walls. Data streams lanced outward, ghost circuits reawakening. Far beyond Pluto's corpse, buried holes pinged back through the void, ancient reactors flickering. Railguns cycling, neural cores testing ancient kill codes against Dominion overrides. One by one, ships long thought dead whispered back a single word, ready. Ava looked at him. Her eyes gleamed with tears she didn't bother to wipe away. We have a fleet. Idris breathed out, his chest aching with something like grief and fury braided together. He saw his mother's face behind the viewport, his father's last whisper in the cellar. The Dominion thought they'd sealed Earth's voice forever. But tonight, humanity spoke again, through rust and ghosts and defiant, impossible hope. He reached over, slammed his palm on the console, then let the stars hear it. Outside, in the drifting graveyard, the first of the God of Wars, children turned its ancient guns toward the darkness and far beyond. The Dominion's monoliths listened, blind to the storm they just unleashed. The first shot fired by the resurrected fleet didn't come with a roar. It came with a whisper through the black, a rail slug the size of a freight train, fired from a warship thought dead since the fall of Mars, tore through the void and struck the nearest Dominion monolith orbiting Neptune's edge. There was no warning, no negotiation, just silent obliteration, the obsidian fortress blooming into a brief, terrible flower of light against Neptune's pale blue swirl. For 30 years, the Dominion's blockade had been perfect, a ring of godlike towers armed with fusion lances and kill-swarm drones, a noose that made her forget what the stars even looked like. But tonight, Idris Harlan's ghost broke that ring, and in the silence that followed, something far older than fear spread through the hearts of humankind. Defiance. Inside the Daedalus Relay's underground command, Idris braced himself against the shaking deck as the Ars protocol raced its systems. Blue light flickered off his scarred face, and behind him, Ava Rosslyn barked orders into a dozen battered comms. Vector the Europa Spear toward Saturn's ring arc. The Kestrel cores still got functional torpedoes. I want to on monolith. 9 now. Tell the Voss wreck to cover our retreat vector. We bleed these bastards before they even wake up. A young voice crackled through the static. Rourke, barely 20, hair shaved to the bone to keep lies from the Undercity. One of Eva's scavenger runners. He was somewhere inside the Rs, guiding his ancient cannons with trembling hands. Commander Rosslyn, the Dominion's answering. We've got 3 patrol wings inbound. Vakar Dreadwings, heavy, Idris's. Knuckles whitened on the console. He stared at the fleet schematic, a swirl of broken ships. Old hulls and half Saint A is flickering awake. They were a patchwork rebellion at best, outgunned, outmatched, but not outwill. He thought of his father's execution under Dominion eyes, of his mother's palm pressed to that viewport while fire ate the station alive. He carried that silence for so long, the silence they'd forced on every survivor. He wouldn't die with it in his mouth. He thumbed the open channel. His voice poured through the crackling dark. This is Idris Harlan, Earthburn. To any soul who can hear this, you are not alone. The Dominion lied. We are alive, and we are armed. If you can stand, stand now. If you can fight, fight. If you can't do either, scream. Let the stars know we are awake. Ava glanced at him, a flicker of disbelief and admiration in her eyes. She pressed her own calm, relayed that across every band. Pirate frequencies, broken towers, old colony relays. Wake every sleeper cell left on Earth's surface. A second later, the relay's main screen bled static, then shifted to show half-buried transmission hubs flickering green. Across Luna's undercities, old rebels huddled around rusted comm rigs, eyes widening as Idris's voice rose through the dust and hunger on Earth. In the tomb cities of the wastes, elders who still remember the sky before the blockade whispered the words to their children. We are not alone. Outside, in orbit, the Dominion Dreadwings arrived like a blade through darkness. 6 living ships, each shaped like a nightmare made of black bone and flickering runes. Their engines spat ultraviolet light as they formed a kill phalanx around the drifting remains of Monolith 7. Inside the relay, the floor shuddered as the Ars Protocol's cannons spat rail slugs. Back at the newcomers, sparks fell from the ceiling as Ava called out new vectors. Europa Spears hit. They're venting atmosphere. Rourke, get them to cycle power to the rear guns. Now, Rourke's young voice came through, tight with terror. They're saying the spear's quarries. Unstable, Ava. If they hold position, they'll blow. Idris's eyes flicked to the tactical feed. The spear was wedged between the monolith kill beams. Absorbing hits meant for the Daedalus relay itself. They were a shield, one breath from death. But if they pulled back now, the relay would. Biash, Ava swore under her breath. Tell them to hold. Tell them, a new voice crackled in, older, ragged, but calm. Commander Rosslyn, this is Captain Hargreave of the Europa Spear. Ava froze. Idris leaned in. Captain, your corps. Hargreave's laugh was tired. I know my ship. We've got one good breath left. We'll spend it here. Silence swallowed the chamber. Idris pressed his forehead to the cold console, fighting the weight in his chest. Captain, no eulogies, son, Hargreave rasped. Just make it worth it. Outside, the spear turned its nose into the teeth of the Dominion phalanx. Its broken hull glowed red as the unstable core built to overload. Ava's voice cracked like glass. Godspeed, Spear. The relay screens flared white as the Europa Spear went nova, a silent bloom of atomic fire that consumed the Dominion Dreadwings in one terrible heartbeat. When the afterglow faded, Idris looked at the tactical map. The monolith's kill beams were gone. The phalanx was ash, but so was the spear, and every soul aboard her. He breathed out. They think we're broken. They think we'll stop. Ava wiped her eyes with the back of her glove. Voice raw. We're just getting started. Outside, the god of war's children moved through the graveyard, old hulls alive with hunger for vengeance. Eyes turned to the stars that had forgotten them. Inside the relay, Idris Harlan closed his eyes. We will make them remember. The relay walls trembled with every distant detonation. The Ghost Fleet's old railguns carving Dominion Dreadwings apart in the darkness, over Neptune's dead orbit. But Idris Harlan barely felt the shudders anymore. He sat at the command console, bathed in flickering light, staring at an ancient data cascade that had not seen living eyes since before the blockade fell. It was here, buried beneath layers of encrypted failsafes, hidden inside his father's final coordinates, humanity's true gambit, the final failsafe, the secret the Dominion never found. Ava Rosslyn paced behind him, eyes locked on the flickering tactical map. Outside, the last of the Europa Spear's sacrifice had bought them precious minutes. But already new Dominion kill fleets were moving, obsidian wings sweeping through the graveyard, tightening the net. They were bleeding the enemy, yes, but every second cost them ships they could never replace. Ava glanced at Idris, her voice sharp. What is it? Idris, you've been frozen there for minutes. What the hell did your father hide? He didn't answer her at first. He saw his father's face instead, tired eyes behind cracked glasses. Soot and oil smeared across knuckles that once wrote equations that terrified the Vakar priests. He heard the whispered words again, the ones he thought were just a dying man's comfort. When they blocked the sky, son, you opened the ground. Now Idris understood, and the truth burned hotter than any rail slug. He turned to Ava, voice trembling. It's not just a fleet, Ava. The ours was never just a ship. It was the keystone for a weapons system they never finished. They called it Prometheus. She frowned. Prometheus, ours, god of war. Prometheus, the thief of fire. Your father and his mythology. Idris's eyes flicked back to the schematics, lines of ancient orbital code, reactor diagrams. Tunnels burrowed deep beneath Earth's mantle. Not mythology, insurance. The Dominion blocked us from the stars, so the old council buried the means to ignite them from below. Prometheus is an orbital ignition core, designed to tap the Earth's own magnetic heart and fire a planet-killer beam into orbit. The ours was the trigger, the fleet was the decoy, Prometheus is the blade. Ava's eyes widened, horror and all wrestling in her voice. A planetary cannon. Idris, you fire that, you'll rip the atmosphere. You'll burn half the sky. He didn't flinch. If we do nothing, there is no sky left for us. The Dominion's coming with dreadnoughts that can crack continents. We can't match them ship for ship, but we can tear a hole through their blockade. Open a wound they can't seal. Ava leaned over him, her breath cold against his ear. How much does it cost, Idris? How much earth burns when you pull that trigger? He met her eyes, saw the fire there, the unspoken grief, the loyalty that had kept her breathing in tunnels and prison ships and frozen bunkers. He knew what she was really asking. Is it worth the cost? He looked away, voice raw. If we stand alone, we die alone. If we open the sky, maybe, just maybe, the colonies hear us. The hidden outposts, the old fringe worlds the Dominion never fully tamed. Maybe they come, or maybe we buy 100 years of rebellion before the Vakar crush us again. But silence is extinction. For a long moment, only the relay's ancient hum filled the chamber. Then Ava grabbed his wrist, tight enough to hurt. Then we do it. But you're not dying alone, Idris. Not again. They shared a breath. To ghosts who had nothing left but each other and this impossible promise. He turned back to the console and typed the final command sequence. Far beneath their feet, the old planetary board tunnels flickered to life. Fusion drills thawing after 3 decades entombed in bedrock. Tremors rolled up through the relay's superstructure as geothermal conduits siphoned raw heat into supercapacitors. Older than Idris himself, above them, the Ars protocol pulsed a final coded burst across the blind spots. A whisper to the scattered ghost fleet, synchronizing all guns on the monoliths above Earth's stratosphere. A single voice cut through the chaos, Orcs, patching through from the air's battered bridge. His voice trembled with awe. Commander, the fleet's in position. Dominion dreadwings are converging. They know something's happening. They're panicking. Idris exhaled. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight lift. Not gone, never gone, but transformed into something bigger than fear. He opened a broad channel, the last channel Earth's people might ever hear. His voice carried like thunder through abandoned towers, hidden bunkers, and rusted comms buried under Dominion jammers. This is Idris Harlan, son of Earth. 30 years ago, they sealed our skies to break our spirit. Tonight, we burn the skies open. If you have loved, if you have lost, if you remember what it means to be human, stand with us, look up, remember the stars, and fight. Ava pressed her hand to the console beside his. Together, he keyed the final sequence. Prometheus roared awake beneath the crust, a sleeping giant reaching for the sky with fire stolen from Earth's molten heart. Outside, the ghost fleet turned its ancient guns on the Dominion's monoliths. The first volley of a dying species that refused to bow. In that breathless heartbeat, Idris felt something the Dominion could never quarantine. Hope, sharp as a blade. Deep beneath Earth's cracked mantle, the Prometheus bore sang with stolen fire. Fusion cores, silent for 30 years, screamed back to life. Miles of ancient conduit glowed molten white as Earth's magnetic veins were forced to yield up. There, strength. In the Daedalus relay, Idris Harlan felt the hum through the soles of his boots. An earthquake that wasn't a quake at all, but a final heartbeat. A promise that this old world, bruised and beaten, still had one breath left to give. Its children. Ava Roslin stood beside him, her shadow flickering in the crimson strobe of the emergency lights. Outside, through the fractured view in port, they could see the graveyard fleet aligning. Ancient war hulks drifting into phalanx, their broken hulls stitched together by desperation and code. Above them, the Dominion's monoliths pulsed. With hostile life, obsidian towers bristling with kill beams. Dreadwings swirling like dark birds over a carcass they thought was theirs by right. Rourke's voice cut through the static of the relay's calm. He sounded so young it made Idris's heart hurt. Too young to be dying for this, Idris thought, then swallowed it back, because the truth was they were all too young to die for someone else's chains. Commander, Dominion dreadwings are in final approach. They're forming a kill net over Prometheus bore. If they lock their fusion lances, Eva slammed her fist into the console. They'll melt the conduits before we fire. Idris's mind spun, seeing it all at once. The monoliths splitting the sky with fusion beams. The Prometheus core rupturing, the dream choking on its own impossible birth. His father's voice again, when they blocked the sky. Son, open the ground. But his father never said how to keep the ground open long enough to win. Ava grabbed his arm. Idris, look at me. She waited until he met her eyes. She looked so tired, he thought, so alive in that weariness. We knew there wouldn't be a tomorrow unless we made one. The fleet can't hold them off forever. But a Prometheus fires first. He finished for her. We cracked the monoliths. Earth's sky opens. The blockade dies. Behind them, the relay's lights flickered again. The ancient systems pushing power to the orbital looplinks, amplifying the bore's final ignition sequence. The ground trembled under Idris's boots. He saw fear in Ava's eyes, but something more savage too, something the Dominion had never managed to strangle. Faith, not in gods, not in lost nations, but in each other. Rourke's voice came through again, now raw with panic. Commander, the Ars is taking hits. Vakar dreadwings on her hull. They're boarding. They're inside the old core. Idris clenched. His fists. Ours is the Ooplink. If they cut her. Ava turned to the console, slamming keys with bruised fingers. Patch me through to the R's bridge, now. The feed flickered to life, static and shadow, and the shaky image of Rourke, his young face smeared with blood and zero-G frost. Behind him, the flicker of weapons fire. Dominion troopers in black, bone armor spilling through bulkheads, the echo of rail slugs and desperate screams. Ava, Rourke gasped, ducking behind a shattered console as plasma fire scorched the air overhead. We can't hold them. They're severing the Ooplink. Ava's voice broke like thunder. Then you buy us 1 minute, Rourke. 1 minute. More. And this sky burns free. Rourke looked into the feed, eyes wide, wet with terror, and for a heartbeat Idris saw the boy he'd been. Just another orphan scavenger in the sunless tunnels under New Santiago. Then the boy's chin lifted. He wiped his mouth with the back of a trembling hand. Understood. Commander. Behind him, another resistance fighter, hair wild, face painted with scavenger soot, shoved a bandolier of old grenades into Rourke's arms. Rourke grinned through the fear. Tell Idris, tell him the ghosts remember. Then the feed cut to static. Ava didn't speak. She just slammed her palm against the console to mute the channel, not to bury the sound, but to bury the grief. Before it could drown her, Idris felt his eyes burn. He saw his father's throat snap under Dominion robe, his mother's palm pressed to the viewport glass. He saw Rourke's grin. He saw everything. He turned to Ava, voice like flint. Is Prometheus charged? She checked the flickering schematic. Miles of bored tunnels, now a single bright coil of stored wrath. We're ready. We just need the Ooplink clear for 30 more seconds. Outside, a bloom of white light flared through the viewing port. The air's final reactor venting its soul in a blossom of stolen nuclear flame. Ava exhaled. That's Rourke buying us time. Idris placed his hand on the ignition key, his father's voice in his head, his mother's breath on his shoulder. 1,000 years of silence coiled in his bones. He pressed the key, deep beneath. Then, the bore howled. A lance of Earth's molten blood climbed its way to orbit. The Dominion's monoliths turned as if in confusion, like gods too slow to understand that a species they caged had teeth all along. The sky tore open, and with it, the silence that had smothered Earth for 30 years. Ava grabbed Idris's arm. Her voice was not a whisper. It was a roar. Now we show them why they should have buried us deeper. For the first time in 30 years, Earth's sky did not belong to the Dominion. Prometheus roared its defiance into the heavens, a colossal spear of incandescent energy tearing through the stratosphere like a star being born. From orbit, the monoliths, those obsidian giants that had suffocated the world's hope, flared white-hot under the bore's relentless beam. One by one, they fractured along ancient weld lines. Internal reactors ruptured, Dominion kill beams sputtered and died, and then the sky opened. Inside the Daedalus relay, Idris Harlan stood with one hand braced on the trembling console as ancient stone cracked around him. He felt the Prometheus bore's wrath in his teeth and bones. The whole relay groaned with the force it was channeling. Sparks fell like burning snow. Beside him, Eva Roslin was laughing, a sound ragged and fierce. The laugh of a woman who lived half her life underground and now tasted open air in her veins. They're falling, she screamed over the rumble. Look at them, Idris. They're falling. On the cracked screen before them, Dominion dreadwings spun out of formation. Confused and leaderless, with the monolith Ooplinks gone, the Vakar command grid fractured. For decades they'd been gods on Earth's throat. Now they were blind serpents, thrashing and afraid. Through the smoke and chaos, old ships from the graveyard surged. Heirs as children, patchwork hulls, misfit guns. Half-mad eyes loyal only to the humans who dared wake them. They formed a wedge, cutting through Dominion wings like wolves among cattle. In the relay's fractured calms, new voices broke through, desperate, defiant, human. This is the Voss cell on Titan. We hear you. By the black ice, we hear you. New Santiago Undercity, we're tearing down the relay jammers. Tell us where to strike. Europa ice yards. We've got old mining tugs, loading them with railguns now. We stand with Earth. Ava pressed her bloodied knuckles to her mouth. Tears streaked through the grime on her cheeks. They're coming, Idris. They're coming. But Idris barely heard her, because on the failing main screen, he saw something that froze his heart in his chest. The Dominion's main dreadnought, the E-bomb prayer, was descending from its hidden orbit. A living cathedral of bone-black plating and pulsing runes. The Vakar's final hammer, massive enough to blot out entire cityscapes when it entered low orbit, its belly cracked open, thousands of drone swarms pouring out like a plague. Fusion lances flickered alive, targeting the Prometheus bore's bright vein. If it landed a direct shot on the conduit, it re-slammed the console. No, no, no. If they sever the bore now, it all dies. Eva dragged her gaze to the screen, her grin gone, replaced by raw battle-hardened focus. We can't stop that thing with rail slugs, Idris, not with what's left. But Idris wasn't looking at the relay's rusting defense grid. His eyes locked on a different signal, one last hope drifting near the dead edge of the graveyard. The Atlas Wrath, Earth's last dread carrier, scuttled in the war's final days and left to rot when its main reactor cracked. Its hull was poisoned. Its guns hadn't fired in 3 decades. But its core still had one thing left, a fusion heart the size of a city block. Idris's mind raced. He saw Rourke's grin, the spear's sacrifice, the heirs' broken cannons, roaring through the dark. He saw all the ghosts whispering the same word, fight. He grabbed Eva's shoulder, pulled her close so she could hear him over the relay's dying roar. We have the wrath. If we jump her into the prayer's underbelly, realization flashed in her eyes. Horror, resolve, the unspoken cost. She's a coffin, Idris. Whoever steers her won't come back. He didn't answer, because the decision was already made, but Eva saw it anyway. She shoved him back, her eyes blazing with something brighter than rage. Not you. Don't you dare. You're the voice. If you die now, they silence us again. He opened his mouth to argue, to order her down, but Eva Roslin was already moving. She slapped the Wrath's core code into the relay's manual uplink, fingers flying over rusted keys. She met his eyes through the rising haze, her voice so calm it cracked him wide open. You stay alive, Idris Harlan. You remember why we did this. You tell them. He lunged for her, but she was already inside the control pod, jacking her neural thread into the Wrath's half-mad systems. A soft tremor shook the relay as the Atlas Wrath's old engines flickered, burning toxic blue against the endless dark. Through the viewport, Idris saw her silhouette in that ancient coffin of steel. One last ember in the dark. Her voice came through the calm, raw, resolute. When they blocked our sky, they thought we'd kneel. Let's remind them what happens when humans stand up. The Wrath's engines roared. She lurched forward, pushed by gravity drives that screamed in protest. Idris watched, his hands pressed to the glass, as Eva Roslin, scavenger, rebel, human, rode the Atlas Wrath straight into the Ebon Prayer's shadow. And when the collision came, when the Wrath's dying core ignited in a supernova bloom that cracked the Dominion's final hammer in half, the sky didn't just open. It screamed humanity's name into the stars. For a moment, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. When the Atlas Wrath collided with the Ebon Prayer, it was as if Earth itself tore open a wound in the heavens and let every buried scream pour out. A sun bloomed where the Dominion's final hammer had been, a flower of white fire and shattered bone that turned night into day. On every broken continent below, in the Daedalus relay, Idris Harlan felt the impact before he saw it. The control room buckled around him, consoles shorting out, metal screaming as old struts tore loose. He pressed his palm to the fractured viewport and watched the Wrath's core blossom into oblivion, swallowing the prayer's hateful silhouette until there was nothing left but a ragged halo of ruin drifting above a wounded but breathing Earth. He waited for her voice. Just one more time, one more rough laugh, one more barked order telling him to hold the line. It never came. The relay's lights flickered and died, but Idris didn't move. His breath fogged in the sudden dark. The silence pressed in, not the old Dominion silence, the suffocating hush of occupied worlds and sealed skies. This was different. This was the silence of an open wound, but also the silence of possibility. He closed his eyes, let the grief come and wash over the fire that still burned in his chest. When they block your sky, open the ground. Eva had opened more than that. She'd opened the sky. The fight, the very marrow of what it meant to be human when everything else said kneel. And now, across Earth's scarred surface, the echoes of her sacrifice lit fires that could never be put out again. Far above the relay's husk, the monoliths lay in ruin, colossal corpses tumbling through low orbit like the bones of dead gods. Without them, Dominion kill beams fell silent, Vakar Dreadwind spiraled away. Blind and leaderless, easy prey for the ghost fleet still drifting on fury and old code. In the ashes of the graveyard, Ayers' children spread out, ancient cannons, flashing as they drove the last patrol wings back into the void they came from. And below, the signal Idris had unleashed when Prometheus' fire kept pulsing through every half-buried calm. Reagan Tunnel repeated the old council had ever built. His voice, Ava's laugh, the Europa Spears Nova, Rourke's final grin. They were more than memories now. They were rallying cries. In the undercities, old men who'd stopped hoping cracked hidden crates open, passing out battered rifles older than their grandchildren. On Titan, ice miners loaded thermite, charges auto drill rigs, aiming at Dominion outposts to isolate and to call for help. In the ruins of New Santiago, children who'd grown up without stars climbed to rooftops to watch the sky blaze. And when they saw the broken monoliths tumble through the dawn, they shouted their own names into the wind. Idris stumbled through the relay's shattered hull, each step echoing off the ancient metal walls. Sparks and molten dust rained around him like confetti at a funeral. He climbed the broken stair to the old comm spire, torn open to the night. Above him, the horizon was no longer a prison wall. It was wide open, black and bruised and endless. He keyed the manual comm, fingers numb and raw. Static hissed, but he forced the signal through anyway, his throat ragged, words shaped by every sacrifice that had brought him here. Earth, this is Idris Harlan. The sky is open, the Dominion is bleeding. You are not silent anymore. He paused, swallowing, the tremor in his voice. Eva Rosalind rode the wrath into the E-bomb prayer. The spear died holding the line. Rourke sealed the uplink with his blood. They didn't do this so we could bury ourselves in tunnels again. The wind clawed at him through the torn hull, but he didn't stop. He wanted the stars to hear every word. We are broken. We have been hunted, silenced, starved, but we were never beaten. Not truly. Not tonight. So stand up. Tear down what they left behind. Light fires on every street, every colony, every outpost they thought they owned. Let them see. We remember who we are. Somewhere in the static, he thought he heard her voice. Not real, but as real as anything that mattered. Together, she'd said. He raised his eyes to the sky, a sky no longer stolen, but scarred and alive and ours again. He whispered it for her, for Rourke, for his mother and father, and every forgotten name buried in orbital slag and broken concrete. Now, the stars carry our name. As dawn crept over the ruined relay, Idris Harlan stood alone, but not alone at all. Beneath him, Earth's people stirred, bruised but unbowed, ready to rebuild or burn or rise again and again until the last Dominion priest remembered why they should have buried us deeper. The graveyard fleet drifted in silent vigil above, iron ghosts watching the new sky they'd torn open at the cost of all they were. And in the shadows of old tunnels and glass deserts, voices rose, quiet at first, then louder. One by one, they whispered the name that the Dominion had tried to erase, human. And for the first time in a generation, the word didn't sound like a curse. It sounded like a promise. The end now. The stars carry our name.